everyone, welcome to our webinar this morning. We'll just wait as a few more people join in and jump online before we get started. Thanks for joining me today. If you're on holidays, lucky you, you can sit back and kind of chill at home while this is playing for you and watch that. And if you're at work, I really appreciate the time that you're giving up to have this on as well, because I know that it's a pretty demanding time for us at the moment. Can see a few more people jumping on. All right, fantastic. So we're going to talk about that feeling or that sense you might be having, which is like, oh my God, I'm just so behind at the moment, and how to manage that idea when it is coming to you, or maybe when it's coming from someone else. And there are some questions popping up about, well, what about this and what about that and what about these students, and how are we going to navigate that now we know that term 2 is going to be online and we're not going to have the same things available to us that we would have if students were at school and if we were in our classrooms. And I think it's important to really, right from the beginning, understand that we just won't be able to teach everything that we would have taught if we had our students in our classrooms. We won't be able to deliver content and curriculum in the same way. We won't be able to have resources at our fingertips or go on excursions or be able to just connect with our students for learning in the same way that we're so used to. And that feeling of, I'm so behind, I'm not doing a good enough job, I'm leaving things out, is probably going to pop up for most of us if it hasn't already. And I think now we have a better understanding of where we're heading, it's time to put some realistic expectations around that. And that goes for us as teachers and individuals, but also schools and teams, and then connecting with parents around that as well, and our students too. So that's what today's going to capture. Now, before we get started, this is a bit of a team effort here within this webinar. I think what the Real Schools team would say, and we all agree, is that the best thing about running these webinars has been the participation from all of you. So it really is about not just listening and having something in the background, but joining in when you're prompted to, or really be thinking and engaging in that space, asking a question if you have one, and just connecting with each other. And so the way to do that is you will see on your control panel somewhere a chat option button. So if you just click that for me now, you'll be able to open the chat box, and you'll see that it has a blue button, which is a default button where it says you can comment and write something to all of the panelists, which is the Real Schools team. But what we'd love you to do is change that right now to everyone, so that your comments or questions or things that you're sharing go to everyone who is in the meeting right now, and that means that everyone will be able to see it. Of course, if there's something you just want to come directly to us, you can do that as well. So that is a bit of housekeeping. If you can just let me know that you hear me, just pop a hi or a yes or whatever into that box, that would be really useful. Just so we know people are, yeah, a thumbs up's great too. I don't know how you did that, but I appreciate it. Fantastic. Of course, if you're driving or something, please don't type in the box because that would be dangerous. But, for everyone else, yeah, fantastic. Good morning, Catherine. Lovely to hear from you all. Thanks. Cool. Okay, so let's get started this morning. I apologise also. I have been doing a lot of recording for Academy, and I was just saying to Simon before we jumped on, I've got this really sore throat. I recorded a whole course yesterday, so that's over 3 hours of content of just talking, and I have just woken up with the sorest throat. It reminds me of my first few years of teaching. I really struggled with keeping my voice all the time. I would, a couple of times a year, just lose my voice from talking, and it's taking me back to those days where I've just talked way too much and my voice is kind of going, you might need to rest today, which, I've got this on and a couple of other meetings, so it's not going to be possible. So I'm going to just sip a lot of tea as we go today. So if you see me doing that, that's why. You'll also notice as we go throughout the webinar today, Adam and Simon are there to answer any questions, and they're also going to be posting the next upcoming webinars that we have. So we've still got about 7 left, I think, after today, and we also have trivia tomorrow night. So information will be coming about that if you haven't already signed up. All right, that takes care of housekeeping. I'm going to start by just recapping what we did last week. Did I do this last week? Yeah, it was. If you jumped on this last week, can you just let me know with a yes, so then I know who, or a no, so then I can kind of see who went through this or watched it last week or who didn't, and then I'll know how much kind of detail to go into it. So if you did this last week, no, you didn't, some did. Yeah. Yeah, so mostly no's. Okay, so this was part of the Managing Expectations webinar that I ran last week. And what we looked at is really how our representation of reality comes to us through our filtering systems. And I just wanted to recap this because I'm going to talk about that feeling of I'm so behind and how part of it is about thinking, and then I'm going to switch gears and talk to you more and give you some practical and strategy parts to take away. So there's 2 parts to today's webinar, but this is the first bit. So we'll start here. I think only 1 or 2 said yes. Yeah. So with what's happening right now, with everything, I think we're moving from things being out of our control to maybe a bit more in our control now. So we were certainly in a space of uncertainty where we didn't know what was going to happen as we move into term 2, but it looks like we're not going to have school as we know it. So that idea of uncertainty has reduced a little bit, and we have the option now to really know where we're going, and we can start planning for that. I mean, the difference is that we don't really have any understanding of what it's going to look like because we haven't done it before. It's completely out of everyone's comfort zone. So what we're doing is we're having to create a new version of reality and really look at the stories we're telling ourselves and what's happening in our head to help us understand how we're feeling right now and how we're going to be able to move forward from what we might perceive as being problems into opportunities. And so that's what the first part of this morning is going to be about. So last week I shared with you how we create our own reality within our heads by having a thought, but the process our mind goes to have a thought is really quite extensive. It's actually quite exhausting before even anything happens. So we have approximately 4 million pieces of information coming to us at any one time in 1 second, which is just extreme. So if you just take a moment just to look around you right now, if you consciously notice everything that your eyes can see, even just in front of you, I am sure that there's quite a lot of things, and it's not just the object itself, it's also the color, it's also where it's sitting, it's what it's next to. So, you know, our eyes are just taking in information all the time. Things that we can feel is another way that we digest what's happening in front of us. Then we have our smell, what can you hear, and what can you taste if you're tasting something. So all the time information is coming to us, and our senses are taking that in and helping us read that situation. Now, lots of this happens unconsciously because if we spent every second really paying attention to what was around us, that's all we do. We don't sit here and list everything we can see. We don't sit here and list everything we can hear. That's not how it works. It happens really quickly. It happens in a snapshot. And then from there, we have a filtering system. And our filtering system is made up of all kinds of things. So time, space, matter, and energy. It's made up of language that we understand and know. We filter it through our understanding of words, the gestures that people use around us, memories, body language. We filter things that happen through past decisions or experiences we've had. We filter things through circumstances, belief, values, and attitudes. This is why 2 people can experience the same event, but process it and have completely different meaning around it. And then what we do is we delete, distort, and generalize that piece of information. So we delete things that are irrelevant. That's why we don't notice everything that happens all the time. We distort it to match our existing map. And then we generalize things to make sure that they align with our own beliefs. That is then what creates a thought. Super exhausting, hey? So we're doing that all of the time. Now, what's happening is when we move into this new space around being able to work from home, work online, connect with our students, we are trying to filter all of that information so it aligns with our filtering systems around our beliefs and our values, our circumstances, our experiences, all of those things. And then we delete, distort, and generalize based on what we know to have new thoughts. And I want to unpack that a little bit more to help with that overwhelmed feeling you might be going on with. Is anyone still feeling in that space of like, oh my God, what's happening? I'm really overwhelmed right now, or anticipating that that's going to happen as they move into term 2? Or do we feel like we've reduced that uncertainty and anxiety a little bit? How's everyone going? Just pop it in the comment box. You can give me a number out of 10 if that's more your style. Comes and goes. Yeah, it's been reduced. Yeah, because you know how it's going to play out. Yeah, yeah. Excited about the new challenge. Fantastic. 7 out of 10 and hopeful. Okay, fantastic. So I think when we started doing these webinars a couple of weeks back now, there was certainly a lot of uncertainty. There we go. There was definitely pockets of feeling uncertain and anxious and overwhelmed, and that seems to have reduced a little bit. So I think that puts us in a better situation now to go, you know what, we know where we're going, we know where we're heading. We can start to now look at what's in front of us and what we can do with that. So last week I also talked about this concept of be, do, have, and this was really about looking at how we want to show up now. So we know that we're going to go into term 2 and it's going to look different. So how do you want to be when you show up into that space, rather than what do you want to do or what do you want to have? So I would imagine now most of us are thinking, oh my goodness, I need to get organized. You know, I need to really be focused on what I'm doing. I really have to be dedicated to my students. I really have to know how I'm going to deliver learning. I really have to know what I'm going to do. And if anything, there's probably a little bit of uncertainty there around what that's going to look like, but that desire to just know and be helpful and generous in that space is probably what's driving us right now. So this was in last week's webinar. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but if you're interested, go and have a look at that. I highly encourage you to think about what kind of teacher do you want to be? What traits do you want to show up with now we're going into this space? And think about when you taught your best lesson or had your best moments in your classroom, who were you being then? What kind of state were you in? And what can you bring with you into that space that you now have in an online environment? Because from here, what we do is we can begin and start to write a new story about what this whole teaching saga is going to look like. And I noticed that some of you commented about you're interested now to see how it's going to play out. You're excited about a new challenge. There's still anxiety, absolutely. It's totally normal. I think it would be very puzzling to have someone who didn't feel a little bit of anxiety about this ever. When we move into a new space, or when we go into the unknown or outside our comfort zone, and anxiety is an absolutely normal emotion to feel. It's not something that we should try and hide away or try and bury. It's something that's just going to be there, of course, but it doesn't mean that it has to be the only thing that we feel or the only thing we focus on. Yeah, feeling uncertain about how we proceed, that's totally normal. So when I talked about our filtering systems before, what that feeling of uncertainty comes from going into the unknown. So we don't have anything to map back to right now necessarily, or an experience that we've had before, or someone who's been down here and is showing examples of what it looks like. We are all together writing a new story about what this looks like. And so that uncertainty is completely valid. But what we need to do now in being able to shift from that feeling of, oh my goodness, I'm so overwhelmed, I don't know what I'm doing, is going, well, hang on, how do I want this to look like? What do I want this to be like? So one of the things that we often do, and Simon mentioned this yesterday, and I think I talked about it last week too, is that as humans, we have this negativity bias. So we always naturally see the problem. We always naturally find the bad in something. We naturally seem to know what's harder rather than what's easier, what's bad rather than what's good, what's causing us more pain than causing us more pleasure. We just naturally do it. It's part of being human. It's ingrained in us. And part of the whole positive thinking thing actually comes from trying to switch up the way we think, because we naturally have this negativity bias to always find the problem in stuff. I mean, just have a moment and reflect on the conversations that you have, say, in your staff room, or when you get home from work, when you catch up with your friends. I wonder if you just take a moment to reflect and think, are most of your conversations based on problem, negativity, things that aren't working? Or is that your default first conversation before you have a good conversation or a positive conversation? Is it a conversation that you have as soon as you get in the door at home and you're just like, oh my God, blah, 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 and we start to then? I think we're all guilty of that. So we're also much better at articulating pain and problem than we are at opportunity, than we are at what has gone well, than we are at what is positive right now. And that's, again, where this idea of practicing gratitude comes in, because we don't naturally do that. So we have to start to build the muscle around, well, what am I grateful for? What has worked really well? What can I be excited about? What opportunities can I see here? And they're questions that I think we get asked more often. You know, what are the opportunities? What can we be grateful for? What are the positive experiences in this? Because we've already done all the negative stuff naturally. No one needs to ask us, well, what's the problem? What's the pain point? What's so hard right now? Because we articulate that naturally. What we don't do so well is the other stuff. So this push, or this even in some ways the hype around, or what we're seeing in terms of having more presence around focusing on the positives, to do with the idea of having to build that muscle in our brain. Because if our natural default is negativity, we're always just going to go down that path. We don't even have awareness of it. We don't think about it. So we've got to start teaching ourselves to look for the opportunity, or the positive, or the things that are going to work well, or what we're grateful for, rather than just sitting in that pain space. Do people get that? Does that make sense? Does that resonate with you? Have you reflected and gone, oh yeah, I think I do a bit of that negative talk too much and have to really challenge myself to find the positive? Yeah, cool. So true. Yeah. That idea of not always having those negative conversations. When I was doing some training in this space a while back, someone shared a concept called the 5-minute whinge, which I absolutely love, because I like venting and getting stuff off your chest is completely normal and natural, and we all need to do it. You can't walk around with it being bottled up inside. And so this idea of, okay, so you can have a 5-minute whinge, that's fine. But what that looks like is you find a safe person, someone that you vent to, whinge to, get it all off your chest to, and you just get it out. You set a timer for 5 minutes and you just blurt it out and get it done. And then the only time you can talk about that situation or thing that's happened or whatever, again, is when you're talking about how you're going to change it, the opportunity in it, the positive from it, what you've learned, what you're going to do next. You park the whinge and you leave it alone and you never talk about it again. And if you can't find opportunity or possibility or something positive in it, then you just don't talk about it. And that has really changed the conversations that I have, whether it's with my sister or my partner or a colleague or whoever that might be. I'm really now more aware that I'm not ringing, you can't ring every person and have a 5-minute whinge to them. That's not how it works. You just pick one person. But since doing that, I've really had to shift the conversations to be more positive, or be more interested in them, or to ask more questions, or to find something else to talk about. And from doing that, I think just the positive ripples in all of those relationships and connections have really enhanced. Because by me, if you do that, you don't have to tell everyone you're doing that, but if you do that, then everyone around you has to match that, because we match and mirror people all the time. So if you're using that as an opportunity to find a way to move forward, then other people are going to match that. And that's a really powerful thing to do. Anyway, I don't know why I shared that. It just popped into my head. So I hope that was useful. Let's keep going with this problem opportunity. So right now, we've been noticing, listening to, having conversations about all of the problems that are going to pop up in terms of potentially moving online, or just the current coronavirus situation, or not knowing what's happening. And so I've collected a few of those, and I'm just going to share with you the most common ones that I think are popping up. So I don't have time. I don't have time to do everything I want to do. I don't have time to plan. I don't have time to be able to teach the entire curriculum. It's too hard. It's all too hard to teach online. It's not possible to get everyone together. It's not possible to teach my students. It's not possible to meet all of the different needs. It's not the same. It's not the same as having students in front of me. It's not the same as being in my classroom. There's too much to learn for the students. There's too much for them to be able to take in. There's too much in an online forum for them to understand. It's too big a change. The change is too much, and it's all at once. You know, we weren't prepared for it. Our students weren't prepared for it. It's just too big. I can't do it. I simply can't do this online thing. I don't know how. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know if the kids can do it. I don't think they can do it. My students can't jump online. It's just not working. And parents don't understand. Parents don't understand what it's like. Parents don't understand what we're dealing with. Parents don't understand it's so different from classroom. Does that Do you think that you've heard some of those or even said some of those yourself? Yeah. Yep. Yep. I would say yes, for sure. Yeah. Yes, with an exclamation mark. Yep. Yeah. So problem exists. There is no denying that there are problems. And I, as I was saying before, if our default is to just have that negativity bias, our default is going to be problem. So it is now about going, well, this is the problem. So one of the things that I would highly encourage you to do, if you're still feeling in this, in a space of where you're overwhelmed or grappling with problem, just get it all out. Just get a pen and paper and write it all out. Don't think about it. Don't stop and try and analyze it. Just write and let your unconscious just take over and just blurt it out. There's no right or wrong. Just get it off your chest, because then what you're able to do is go, well, you know what? It's a choice to sit in problem, and we're not sitting there anymore. So we now have to go, well, what's the opportunity? What questions can I start to ask myself so that I can move away from the problem and into a space where we're moving forward? And this is exciting. You know, what else can I see here? So we have to flip our problem and start asking questions like, oh, I can't read them. That thing's in the way. What can I do with the time we have instead of I don't have time? It was too hard, but what's easy? What's easy right now that I can do that is manageable, that's going to fit the time that I have, the workload that I can have, the things that I have access to? Can't read it. Sorry, I just have to move that. What can I keep the same? So what did you do in your classroom that you can still keep the same in an online environment? Did you used to start each lesson with a check-in with your students? You can still do that. Did you used to keep a gratitude jar in your classroom? A teacher was saying that they had a gratitude jar in their classroom, and so now they're using Padlet to collect those same kinds of thoughts. So you can still do that as well. What did you keep the same? What did you do in your classroom that you can maintain and do consistently? What learning is essential? So I'm going to talk a little bit more about this as we go on. But I mean, the curriculum's overcrowded anyway. We know that. There is going to be too much for us to be able to put in an online platform and do effectively while we're doing explicit teaching with modeling and give feedback and provide students with next steps and goals and be able to take them through learning progressions. Like it is going to be probably too much online in all of the key learning areas. So part of this is about stripping back and going, well, what is essential for their learning? I go back to your achievement standards and really unpack those and look at what that is, rather than seeing it's too much. What is essential? What doesn't have to change? So this is again about what can we keep the same? So that consistency is going to be really important for you and your students to know that, oh yeah, we used to do this in class. Like I'm used to this. I know how this looks. I know how it works. That reduces some anxiety for you and them as well. What can I do? So what can you do in this space? There are certainly some things that you can do. Can you learn how to provide, if you are really big on feedback in your classroom, can you learn how to provide feedback in a different way? Can you still learn how to have breakout sessions in Zoom so you can run small group activities? Can you still find a way to check in with your students every day to maintain that connection and those relationships? What can you do? It might look differently, but it doesn't mean you can't do it. What can our students do? I think we're probably underestimating our students right now. We know that online for them is like their second home. They know it better than we do, most of them. I'm sure you've all been in a classroom where IT has failed and you just look for your students or one of them to save you. We've all done that before. They will know more than us in this space somehow. So we need to be able to use that to our advantage. You know, what can they do that we haven't noticed or haven't seen yet? And what do I need to communicate with parents? What do I need to communicate with parents so they understand that it's not their fault that they don't understand? They just want to know. They just want reassurance, and they want to be able to ensure that they're doing the right thing too. This is a massive moment of uncertainty for them as well. And let's remember, And for those of you who are parents, you would know that they're trying to work from home as well as do their job, as well as make sure their students are learning, as well as keeping the household going. It's a massive undertaking. And so we need to help them understand. So whatever problem it is that you are finding is popping up in your head all the time, or that it's the story that you keep telling yourself, get it out, but then ask yourself, how can I change this? What question can I use to see an opportunity here? What have I missed? What else can I really focus on instead of problem? And then, take that 5-minute whinge approach and then park it, leave it, let it go. A great thing to actually do is to write it all on paper and then scrunch it up and throw it away and get rid of it, physically get rid of it. And then again, go with that. Well, what are my opportunities here? What can I focus on instead? Would anyone like to add anything to that before we move on? How's that feel? Just trying to move my thing back. All right, let's keep going. So we're going to switch gears a little bit. That really does bring us to the end of that mindset space. So if anyone had any questions around that, or wanted to just add a comment for everyone or share something, now's your time to do it, because we're going to move into that more practical space. Yeah, we're going to talk about routines in a minute and what that looks like. It is really important. All right. Okay, so I mentioned focus on essentials, and this is going to be really key when it comes to what you are teaching and learning and what content you are deciding is going to be important for you, and potentially what you have to let go. So someone's just said, we do a question each day with the role, and I plan on posting it online each day. I've done that too, where you use the question. And so I used to have when I taught lower primary, have a little schoolhouse and a question, and if they were here, they could, a yes or no question, move their face to yes or no or something like that. You can absolutely do that online for sure. So it is about keeping those routines and things consistent. So focus on essentials. In a classroom, we have so many things that we want to do, and lots of the things that we do actually are unplanned. They are responsive, they are about connecting with students, they are about what students have brought with them that day. And right now, that little part of almost the joy in teaching in this space is going to look different. Not gone, but it's going to look different. But what we need to do is we need to know, first of all, how much face-to-face time are you having? I think that is very different for every school. It's very different for every teacher, every class. You need to know what face-to-face time you have and what access that looks like for you and your students to be able to have together. And when you do that, that is where you need to focus on the essentials. So for primary school teaching, that really comes down to the essentials around literacy and numeracy, or English and maths. We know that we're not going to have 4 or 5 hours a day with our students every day to be able to teach them everything else. We're just not. It doesn't mean we don't teach it, but it means we focus on the essential skills, and we go back to our achievement standards, and we ask ourselves, what is it my students really need to be able to know here? It's also a time to start asking yourself, how can I bring in other curriculum and key learning areas so that that we're teaching in a more integrated way, so we're working smarter, not harder. And I know that might be a shift for some people, or it might be a bit different for how you normally do it, but if we go back to some of those problems about I can't do it all and I don't have time, we have to shift how we do this now. We have to shift from what our classroom is to look like and how we structured our day into something that's going to be more achievable for everyone, not just for you, but also for your students and their learning, and the parents who are involved, and people that provide support in your school, and everything and everyone that is involved. So the first tip really is focus on those essentials. You need to know what they are. You need to be really clear and articulate about them when it comes to communicating them within your team and how you work together. And you need to be able to ensure that you communicate this to parents so that they know, right, so right now we're just focusing on this, this, and this. And some of those other questions or things that might pop up or wonderings that they might have, we can start to put down and go, you know what, this is just what we're doing right now. This is what we've decided is essential. And then it is also going, if we're looking at a certain writing structure or something to do with grammar or a maths problem, can you include other areas of the curriculum in that? Can you link in your history and geography? Can you link in science to that? And the same goes for secondary teaching. You know, we're not going to have access to all these amazing science experiments that you used to do, or be able to go for a walk somewhere and look at something, or we're just not going to have the same access to things. So it's about, how do you do that? That time you have with your students is going to be dedicated to that modelling and explicit teaching, which means you might need to prepare, you might need to do the science experiment or the food tech thing or whatever it is beforehand, and then show them a video of that. Or maybe you're doing a live demo one day and they respond to it. It's about what's essential for my students to learn here, rather than what do we want them to do, because the doing bit is going to have to come later. The learning bit has to drive what the essential things are that we're connecting with our students over. So that's my first little practical tip there, is focus on those essentials. So what are your non-negotiables? This is a framework that you can use to decide what it is you would like to do, might do, and must do. And I actually use this when I plan with teams anyway, when we're looking at teaching and learning. So the achievement standards are your non-negotiable. They're what you must ensure that you have provided students an opportunity to learn by the end of the year. Now, we're really only at the start of the year, and I think if we're honest with ourselves, we didn't get through a full term one anyway. So we need to go back and say, you know, what must I teach this year? What is really essential? What might I like to teach? So often this is in a classroom, this is also like the fun stuff. This is the stuff where it's like, yeah, we're going to do this. This is really cool. The must stuff is your modeled and explicit teaching. The like stuff is the stuff that fills the gap. And the might in the middle is the thing that you will do if you get time. If you don't, it doesn't matter. But it's the stuff that enhances that must and explicit teaching. So like, might, and must. You must do your achievement standards. Then you have those might things that are going to enhance the achievement standards, the explicit teaching and learning. And what would you like to do? I think the like to do stuff is also the things that we can say to our students, you know what, if you've got more time or you want to be doing extra stuff, or parents want to be able to give their students more opportunity to learn and do things at home, that's the like stuff that they can do. That's the like stuff. It doesn't matter if they do or they don't do it. It doesn't matter if someone helps them and it's a family activity or not. It doesn't matter if you see it or you don't. It doesn't matter if you just see the end outcome and not the process. That's the like stuff. The might stuff is a toolkit you need to keep for you. You need to keep some things in the back of your mind that are, you know what, if we have a little bit of extra time, if the kids get through it quickly, if I have 5 kids who I can already see are really getting on with it, I'm going to get them to do this. So just like in a classroom where you always have a few extra things that you had planned but maybe didn't explicitly teach or get to teach to your whole class, you need to have those ready. Your must teach is your must for everyone, of course. So, and within this, we still can't forget what great teaching is. We can't forget that explicit and model teaching, which should be your face-to-face time or pre-recorded and then unpacking with your students. We can't forget differentiation to meet all individual needs. We can't forget those students who you know need a little bit more prep time. So maybe you're providing them with some pre-learning or some pre-key vocab before the lesson starts. We can't forget feedback and showing our students that we are connecting in with what we're doing. So again, set times up in your day now to know that this is when you will provide feedback. This is when you'll be able to engage with your students. This is when you'll be able to set some next steps for them. Assessment is also something that we can't shy away from. So go back first though, when you're planning your lessons and thinking about teaching, to this like, might, and must. So why is this important for like that feeling of I'm so behind? It's because we can't do everything. We have to now find a way and a formula that's going to help us understand what is essential, what are our non-negotiables, and what kind of can we let slide off a little bit. How does that sound? Does that help? Sorry, I have to have a drink because my throat, too much talking. Thumbs up. I don't even know how you're doing the thumbs up, but I like it. Very clever. Right. Okay, so what do we need to do now as we move into this space? There are a few things. Go to the emoji board. I don't know how to go to my emoji board, but iPads and phones. Okay, clever. All right. So spend some time asking yourself who you want to be in this teaching space. You know, who do you want to be? Do you want to be organized? Do you want to have your resources done? Do you want to just show up and be vibrant? I think when you ask students who their favorite teachers are or what lesson they liked best, it's not necessarily about what they did. It's about you. It's about whether or not it was fun. It's about whether or not there was enjoyment in it. It was about whether or not they felt successful. So we have to be bringing all of that into the classroom space. Get some resourceful beliefs and stories happening. So go back and look at what story you're using. Go back and look at what you're telling yourself and shift these into an option so that it's going to work for you. It's going to empower you. And then turn your problems into opportunities. I think that's going to be really key here in terms of knowing how we're going to move from that, oh my God, I can't do it all feeling, into, well, what can I do? You know, we've got to keep it realistic. We've got to be on top of that. Some other things here for you to be able to make this a little bit more manageable is set some routine and structure around your day. I can't talk enough about how, you know, as teachers, we do this whole, oh my God, I live my life by the bell. And we say to other people who have other careers, you don't get it. Like, you get to go to the toilet when you want, and you get to eat when you want, and you get to go outside when you want. And we don't get to do that. And we don't. It's true. We are living by the bell creatures because that's what we have to do. And often when we start to have a little bit of freedom around what our day looks like, that freedom can very quickly turn into procrastination because we don't know what to do. So I would encourage you to live your life by the bell still. Maybe not a physical bell, but a bell of some sort. So having that routine and structure and schedule is really important for you to still be productive, to still stay on top of everything you need to do. Some people have shared that working from home for them is really difficult because there are so many distractions. So set up that space where you can actually focus and work. And when you go there, so we talk about the classroom for our students is a cue for them to start learning. So some schools, for example, are getting students to put their uniforms on because it's a cue for learning. So do the same, get dressed for work, have a desk and a space that you go to that sends a signal to your brain that this is about work. Reduce some of those distractions and go back to using a day planner and break your day into 30-minute intervals and chunk things down into time frames. Do those things that you know work for you when you're really on top of it at school. This is about, well, what can I do in the home space as well? So bring that for you so you don't end up being in that overwhelmed, crazy feeling. So the next thing is, what do you need to do when it comes to school and your teaching team? Go through that, I wrote like, might, must process. Go through that like, might, must process. Really start to unpack the curriculum and grapple with, what does this look like? Now, it might be different from class to class. It might be different student to student, just as it always is. But within your team, really decide that core and that non-negotiable must teaching, and then know what you need to do for those students who are above or below that, and what other support you need to put in there to help them wherever it might be. So decide on your essential learning, agree on that, and know what that's going to look like. And then have some expectations. What are the expectations around teaching, modelling, marking, assessment? What is the expected face-to-face time? What are the expectations around what you're supposed to do in that space? You know, are you expected to explicitly teach? Are you expected to have a whiteboard in the background? Are you expected to make it all live and connected? This is really going to help with that overwhelm of, I don't know if I'm doing a good enough job. I don't know if I've covered everything. I don't know if what I've done is right. So if that's not coming from your school, then I would suggest you do that with your team. or a collective group of teachers, just so you're all clear and you're able to know that you're being consistent, and then you can help each other, you can build upon that. When you're coming together to go, this didn't work or that didn't work, you know you've all had relatively the same experience, and it means that you can move forward from there as well. Same with the modelling. What does that look like for you in a school or as a teacher and in a team? What platforms can you use to do that? How will that work? What are the requirements around marking and assessment? You can't take books home with you anymore, so it's going to look completely different. How are you doing that online if there is marking and assessment to happen? Again, what platform will you use? What will that look like? Are you saying that maybe you're just going to mark 2 pieces of literacy or maths a week, or 1 year group per subject teacher in a high school? And if that's an approach you take, then I would really ask you to consider what pieces of work it is you're getting your students to do that are about marking, and ensure that there's feedback in that space so that it's relevant. There's no point just marking a maths piece of work where they can check the answers themselves. You want to be ensuring that what you're putting time into marking is quality for them and quality for you. So always think about, if I go back to that maths example, you might have some algorithms with question and answers, but then how are they applying that knowledge as well is really where you come in, and you think, have they got it all and worked it all out together? Or maybe you are explicitly teaching a certain strategy, and so you're giving feedback on that or something. It's about knowing the expectations that are put on you right now, so you don't get into that, what am I doing space. And stay connected with your teaching team, stay connected with those around you, stay connected with the people in your school. Maybe this is about having an online staff meeting where you just show up with a coffee and connect and chat, or maybe it's about having meetings that you want to get together if everyone wants to talk about. And schools will do this in staff meetings anyway, but how are you sharing assessment? What is some learning that's happening in your virtual classrooms that you're really excited about? Maybe it's just picking up the phone and calling a colleague and being like, how was your day? Just as simple as that. Stay connected with each other. Just because things are changing, we don't have a physical staff room to sit down and chill out and hang with each other, doesn't mean we can't do it differently. So start to look at that as well. And then for our parents and communication and parents, share that like, might, must with them in a way that is, of course, suitable for your school and your clientele and your parent community. But there's a little bit of transparency here that I think needs to happen. This is just my opinion, so take it as you wish, but I think there needs to be some transparency around what are we saying as teachers and schools and educators that we see as essential learning right now. So we've got to remember that parents might have limited devices. They might have limited time that they can give to their students. If they've got 4 kids at home and they're trying, even if you've just got 1 child, would be overwhelming for me. But if they've got a number of children at home and they're trying to work from home, and we're saying to them that they have to be on top of what every child is doing, you imagine how they're going to feel? So I think having some clear guidelines around, look, this is what we're saying is essential and they must do. This is what we're saying we would maybe do. If we get a bit more time, we might cover these things. And this is what you can do. This is what we'd like them to do if they have extra time, or you want to give them another activity, but they don't have to, So share that with your community in whatever way, forum, format, language it is that you use to help alleviate some of that stress and anxiety that they're feeling, and to help with some of those excessive emails you might be receiving right now too. Set checkpoints, so let your parents know when there are certain points throughout the week, if it needs to be that frequent or even term, where you're going to be communicating this with them so they know what to expect. Share the roles of everyone so they know who to go to or who to connect with, or who they can turn to if they have something that they want clarification around. It's probably an all right idea to develop some kind of parent cheat sheet for them, so that they're going to have Q&As just like you have, right? They're going to have problems in their head that they're telling themselves just like you are, because this is all unknown, not because there's anything malicious in it or they're trying to be negative. It's just the humanness. So can we develop a parent Q&A cheat sheet for them to help them navigate this time. And keep that communication really open. And I said there with boundaries, I know that some schools are finding that parents are just emailing all the time, being inundated, and some schools have said, you know, please try and email a teacher only once a day. I think that's really kind for you and for them. So set some boundaries around that communication for you and what that looks like, but consider the transparency that you have right now when it comes to how we're connecting with parents as well. So that's a little bit of the practicality around what to do now. Now we know where we're heading and what that looks like and how we can navigate that together. Does that sit with everyone? Does anyone want to add anything before we finish up today? Is there anything else that I have missed? How do we go? I nearly dribbled. All good? Okay. Love the like, might, must approach. Yeah, cool. Feel free to steal that. I just made it up yesterday. Those words, like, might, must. I think we've known that we probably have used them in schools in terms of teach, expose, consolidate. Like those three words are really what steal it, go for it. But that like, might, must is a more probably friendly approach. And then I think that's easy to communicate with parents. I think the most anxiety will be with parents that they aren't great with IT. Yeah, hopefully all the kids are going to shine during this time. I think our students will. I think share that with, communicate with that with parents. We understand that IT isn't everyone's area of expertise, and you know what, it isn't for us as teachers either. We've had to learn how to use new platforms and how to go into this space as educators. It's unknown for us, so we know how you feel. Just be open with them and say, we get it. It might even be useful to run an online meeting for parents and show them some of the tools that you're going to be using and how they work, so they understand the back end too. Our kids are great, but our kids can be sneaky. We know that. So just ensuring that our parents understand what everything looks like and what they're supposed to be seeing and doing can be really helpful too, especially for, I was going to say little children, but older children are just as sneaky too, aren't they? So it is again about having that transparency. These are platforms we're using. This is what it will look like. This is what your child might be asked to do. This is how it will look. Just let them know that we're all learning together, but that line of communication is really important. Fantastic. Okay, so is tomorrow Thursday? Yeah, it is. Tomorrow night we are having our very first trivia event. I say first because we feel like there might be more, but we are just so excited and so grateful that so many of you have signed up to this. Now, I know Adam or Simon somewhere in the chat box would have posted the link. You can also find it on the Real Schools Facebook page, but we highly encourage you to just come along tomorrow night at 7:30 for some fun trivia. We have put together 9 different quizzes. We are not sure how it's going to go. We're pretty confident something will go wrong, but the idea is to have fun. So there we go. Simon's just posted it. Yeah, looking forward to it. Fantastic. Questions based on Richmond Tigers. I don't know. You'll have to check with Adam on that. I didn't do the sport thing. Ready to go. Fantastic. So BYO event, obviously social distancing and all of that, but that doesn't stop you from having teams. If you would like a team, what we're saying is everyone can jump on the Zoom webinar. That's not a problem. We will be sharing the Kahoot screen, but we're going to ask that just one person logs into Kahoot and is responsible for answering the question, and you just need to have a different platform where you'll be having the chat around what is the answer. So you can use WhatsApp for that, or House Party, or a Facebook group, or whatever it might look like. Set up, oh no, you can't be in 2 Zooms at once, don't do that. So you've just got to figure out what that's going to look like. But everyone will be able to see the questions because you'll all be able to see the screen on the Zoom webinar. Make sure you have a really good team name though, because there might be bonus points for that. Don't know. So make sure you signed up, get all your teacher friends together, and be prepared to have a great time for that. And also, if you haven't already done so, check out Real Schools Academy. So that is where most of my work is based. We've got a free course at the moment for teachers, just helping you kind of grapple this unexpected time. And then all of our academy courses, which there are 18 altogether, crazy, will kick off on the 4th, 5th of May, somewhere around there, depending. So jump over to the website or the Facebook group and have a look, Facebook page, and see what's happening there as well. Otherwise, everything can be also found on Real Schools. I hope that you have had a wonderful time this morning. Thank you. We are back again tomorrow as well. I think, oh my goodness, I did this last time. I don't know, is it Simon or Adam tomorrow? I can't remember. No, it must be Adam. Simon was yesterday, yeah. So Adam will be joining you tomorrow. Fantastic. Okay, I'm going to leave you. Again, if you need anything, please just reach out. You can email myself via the Real Schools email, all online. You'll find it. Just check these last few comments. Asking for general feedback from parents. All home circumstances getting hard. Looking forward to it. Yeah. Rest my voice. I know, it's so terrible. Such a typical teacher, aren't I? Okay, fantastic. Have a great day, and we'll see you for trivia. Super fun.